This episode is going to mark a bit of a change in how I approach these. This vlog has always been very talking head heavy. It's always been me talking about the work and then sort of intermittent moments of stuff. And I think I'm going to have to change that over the next few weeks. I have a blood sugar problem that I manage with exercise, which obviously the lockdown is going to make quite difficult. Normally I travel a lot and I go to workshops and rehearsals and I'm walking all over London or all over Bath or all over some other place. And that takes care of it. And the few days I am at home, it's not really a problem to not be doing so much. However, if I'm going to be here for weeks, I really need to be working out a way to get that level of activity into my everyday life here. And that really has to take priority, because if it doesn't, I end up in a high-risk group for coronavirus. And I don't want that, oddly enough. So that's going to be my priority over the next few weeks. I'm still composing. There's so much going on. I did contemplate stopping filming these for a few weeks and then just saying, right, I'll come back at some point. I feel, though, that there is so much happening now. And things are changing so fast, and there are so many tools that we're all having to test out now, and so many modes of creating and performing that are having to be experimented with, that actually it's a really useful thing probably to have that documented. And I really want to try to push some boundaries on how I'm working. I mentioned, I think in the last episode, that I've felt that the way I work needs to change after Snape Malting's residency being over. And after the week of the Porthleven Prize, I feel that things have started to change, but equally there hasn't really been enough time yet to work out how they're changing. I've got a new piece to report on this time where I have, most unusually for me, created the score first and then worked out what it should sound like. Normally I work in completely the opposite way. I make the piece and then I work out what the score is. And yeah, I don't know what this means. Is it a one-off? Is this the future? But at any rate, there's a lot of things changing, and I think I don't want to miss noting that. I think it's really quite important, both in terms of composition in general and in terms of my own process, because I don't know where I'm going to end up at the end of all of this. So I'm going to be experimenting over the next few weeks, I think, with different ways of presenting material, with everything being online, or so much of it being online. You know, there's just record buttons in everything now, which there didn't used to be, and I suspect I'm going to end up with a lot of documentation, and it's probably easier just to play longer segments of the documentation with either a voiceover or a text snippet to describe what's going on, and just kind of collage it together, see what happens. So I don't know what's going to happen with the schedule. I mean, I've been a bit off schedule for quite some time now, but I still like the idea of sort of checking in every couple of weeks. But I think this might call for a different way of working, because I think things might happen in chunks and then sort of little random moments, and maybe it's easier to sort of clump those together but put some dates on things as I put them in. So I think I'm just going to play with the format a bit and just see what goes on, and just be a little more flexible in how I respond to all of this, while also allowing myself a bit more leeway to do what I have to do to keep healthy right now. In the last episode, I was talking about preparing for my gigs at the Bath Spa University Locksbrook Campus opening. I think these went pretty well overall. I felt that the installation version of Dot Trip Line Line 8317 Fall didn't really work terribly well in the space. I think my plan was okay, but I'd been told that people would be passing through, but they weren't really, so it kind of wasn't needed, and I ended up ditching it after a while. I also didn't find out until just before the first gig that actually there were no headset mics to be had, so quiet songs needed to be unamplified. This was mostly fine, because I was in small spaces, which kind of went with the small audiences. but the white noise section is quiet even with amplification, and I felt I needed to find a different solution for that. Harry Matthews suggested in the sound check that perhaps, given the overall smallness situation, I could just move closer to the audience for this so they could hear me. I'm really pleased with how this worked, and I think I wouldn't hesitate in a similar situation to do that again. I also made my first attempt at DIY live streaming while preparing these performances, and then I broadcast a couple of pieces on Instagram Live during the gigs. I've been meaning to test this out for quite a while now, but I think I still need to work out how to do it effectively. With short pieces like this, it doesn't really work terribly well as a live experience because it takes time for people to work out there's actually something happening. And it's also a bit of a killer on the mobile battery, as I discovered after performing the whole of Quiet Songs and then discovering my phone had died about 2 minutes into the piece. But I'm really glad I tried it, and I'm going to do further experiments with this. A while back I was thinking about drawing shadows of suspended objects for Impedimenta, but I didn't really get any further than just thinking I'd like to draw shadows of suspended objects. And then I had this day where I was feeling kind of stressed out, but I wanted to be doing something. I turned to Inventory of Behaviours for inspiration, and specifically a behaviour contributed by Bill Leslie, which starts, make a bunch of things without any forethought in an excited but technically sloppy way until you feel fairly hopeless. So I grabbed a bit of paper and I just made it into a 3D shape just by randomly stapling it to itself. And then I realised that I could actually suspend it from my lamp so that the light would be shining on it and I'd be able to see the shadow. So I made another couple of sculptures, suspended them, drew each of them. I don't think the drawings themselves are terribly important. I think the act of drawing them was much more significant. Just looking at the light on the suspended sculptures and seeing the shadows, understanding how the movement of the object, even with just a breath or the movement of my hand underneath it, would set the shadows in motion. Because each time this happens, it changes the shape slightly, and so that drawing it as it moved was kind of like drawing multiple things. The practical result of this is I think this might help address the three major problems we've found, or certainly that I've felt we've found using the objects from my studio. The first of which is that they look kind of ridiculous. The second is that we haven't really found enough objects of appropriate weight and size. Most things are too light to affect the sound. And three, because of the nature of the objects, I'm a bit concerned that we won't be able to reliably attach them in such a way as to be confident of them not detaching during performance and, frankly, hitting someone in the head. Jenny and I had talked briefly about things like fishing weights in our last workshop, but we felt that that wouldn't look very good, which is important to both of us. So now I'm thinking that we could create paper shades in a sort of similar way to these very rough sculptures for each weight, so there'd be a similarity but sort of points of difference. It'd disguise the fishing weights, and it might also combine quite well with the LED light experiments we'd started doing. So I've posted all this to our joint blog, and now that's just waiting for Jenny to get back to me and let me know what she thinks. Anyway, so that's it for this time. Thank you very much for watching. As always, if you've got any comments or questions, please leave them below, and I may or may not see you in the next episode. Thanks. Bye.